Welcome, everyone, back to the podcast. I am here with McKay, and she is going to be talking with us today about the adjustment of going back to or returning to paid work. We may get into a long gap of returning to work or the short gap of returning to work. But that's what we're going to be chatting about today. And she has, right off the hop, she has three things that she wants you to know. To know your values, to understand that there is a work-life blend, not balance, and that remembering your benefits of returning to work and not always the pitfalls or the costs of that. Anna, we are so glad that you are here. Can you tell us a little bit about what jump-started you into this work of working with families who are returning back to work?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yes, so I started Parents Pivot after being a coach for 11 years. And I started Parents Pivot really to focus on helping parents navigate that transition back to paid work. I saw it so many times. I was an expat twice, lived in the Philippines and Beijing, and then moved to Houston 10 years ago and saw this phenomenon over and over again of women who had mostly women because there were a few men, but mostly women who had left paid work and were looking to return, but were finding that difficult. I saw this over and over again, one-on-one with coaching clients or with friends as an expat. And as a coach, I knew I had some tools and skills that could help people navigate that return a little bit easier and better and stronger. So I founded Parents Pivot in 2019 to be that resource. And we've expanded to help parents navigate all sorts of career transitions. So yeah.
Amazing. And what is the number one question you get for returning back to work?
Yeah. So people returning back to paid work, the number one question I get is, how do I address the gap on my resume? So how do I navigate? How do I talk about all that I've been doing in my unpaid work in a way that relates to the workforce that an employer would understand? That's definitely number one. Number two is, how do I navigate this transition? Everybody in my family is used to me doing all the things at home, but I know that's going to be different. Sometimes I know that's going to be different, and sometimes I don't know that's going to be different. I'm just going to keep trying to do all the things and then get overwhelmed when you do return back to paid work. So it's that those are the two biggies, really.
And how do you support people through that? So before we hit record, you told me that there is this kind of returning back to your values. And so can you give a little bit of context to how that applies when you're returning to paid work?
Yes. So I think that returning to paid work is an excellent opportunity to reevaluate kind of what it is that's important to you. And so when you take a look at the way that you've been doing things, the way that your family has been working and managing it while you've not been working, there may be some things that you've been doing that you can let go of. There may be some things that you've been doing that you can get a little bit more team support around. For example, there was a study done that showed that single moms actually do less housework than married moms. And you'd think the reverse would be true, but it seems that from the study that these married moms are performing to gender expectations, gender norms, and maybe there's some things that they could be letting go of that are not as important to their family as they need to be. And so really being clear on what you value as a person, as an individual, what you feel like this is really important for me to get done, and then letting go of those things that are not as important, that maybe kind of you're doing just because there's an expectation, or there was an expectation 10 years ago that you do that. So
Or your
yeah.
mom always did it, or your grandma always did it. Though those like matriarch lines of like,
Yes.
well, if I don't bring homemade cookies to the whatever, then I'm less than, or I'm not as worthy as a parent. Or
Yes.
so if it, and that is all like layered and gender and patriarchy and history and all the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Oh my gosh, there's some store-bought cookies my kids love, and they get so excited when when we get those, you know? Definitely prefer those over homemade sometimes, and but we gotta think for ourselves what's important and put that other stuff away and don't spend time on things that are not important to us. Yeah, for sure.
How do you coach people on that, Anna? Like I think it's we when I talk to my own clients, it's not that they don't know what they need. It's not that they
Yeah.
don't know what's important. They do. It
Yeah.
is that like putting that other stuff away that can
Yes.
really wreak havoc on the way we
Yes.
talk to ourselves, and then that can manifest in like nervous system and like physiological responses to stress. And so if you could give just like one really like granular tip on how to put that away, what would you say to somebody, a client sitting in front of you right now?
Yeah, I love, encouraging my clients to create permission slips for themselves and a physical copy of that permission slip. Write it down. I give myself permission to whatever. I give myself permission to let go of those expectations that were holding me back. Like getting specific as you can, writing it down and having that visual reminder for yourself. And you can say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. I give myself permission to let go of that idea.
Amazing. That's so good. Um, can you tell us the difference between work life blend and work life balance and why you choose blend over the word balance?
Yes, I love that. Thanks so much for that question. So, especially when people are returning to paid work, they're like, how am I going to balance this all? And it's not about the balance, it's about the blend. It's about creating a work and life situation that works for you and being intentional about it. And so, the work life blend is really, your work and life blend is going to look different from mine. It's going to look different from your neighbors. It's going to look different from somebody who's been continuously working. Is going to be look different from your moms and from previous generations. So really kind of taking the time to be intentional and figure out like what is it that I want? Like what is the blend of work and life that's important to me, and to start from that point going forward.
Mm. And how might you avoid the work life balance trap where you're trying to I think the same could be true when we think about the equity in the home, when one person might think it's supposed to be 50-50. And I think I know for my clients, sometimes it can be true where they apply that same narrative to the work life balance, right? Like if I can work 8 hours a day, then I should be able to output this much at home. Or,
Right.
you know, um, how do I make up for this time that I'm now at work?
Yes. Yes. And yeah, and I think that that's a really important question because it is like work-life blend means that sometimes you will be focusing more on work. Sometimes you will be focusing more on life, whether that's home, outside of work, anything outside of work, your community, whatever. And so being like when you've got times, like when I know I've got times of intense work, I often schedule a day right after that to kind of decompress.
Mhm.
So following your schedule and knowing what it is, like knowing that you might have some periods of intense work, but knowing that you will also have some intense periods of rest as well. And I think that that's kind of something that we don't focus on enough is incorporating those periods of pause, incorporating those periods of rest to give ourselves time to have creativity again, to generate ideas and to kind of like just help our brain kind of relax from an intense period of work or whatever. So really planning and scheduling in some of those pauses to your time.
Mhm. And would you say that if people are in a position where they have a partner, that the the partner also has to kind of have a buy-in on this as well, where
Yeah.
like both people have an opportunity to stay interesting and to give themselves permission for play
Yes.
and leisure and pleasure and rest. Like, when I imagine work life blend, I'm not imagining this like a solo mission for mom returning
Yeah.
back to work, right? It's like the work life blend is like everybody is involved, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
needing to witness those leisure activities, those play activities, rest. Mom's going for a nap. We don't bother mom when she's having a nap. Dad's going golfing on Saturday. Like those, or in the example of a same sex couple, mom is doing this today and mom is doing this today, and watching. Um, I actually love that my kids get to watch me enjoy that part of my life.
Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I mean, I think having those conversations with your partners in caregiving, whoever that might be, whether that's, a spouse or a partner or a parent that's, or somebody else in your village, like having those conversations about, what's important to you, and how things are going to change. I think that's a conversation that a lot of people avoid when they're returning to paid work. A lot of people feel like, oh, I'm just going to be able to manage it all, or I don't want to rock the boat too much. I'm already going back to paid work. I'm already like kind of causing this big change. Like, oh,
I'm causing I'm causing this big change. And that narrative would have never existed. Again, if you are in a partnership or in any kind of relationship, a two-parent
yes,
household, you
yes,
would never think that of your other parent, that like they were causing this shift and this
yes.
in your life. Like,
Yes, 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 exactly, exactly. Like we can sometimes, and what I see in my clients all the time is taking on all this ownership for all the negativity, like imagining all the negative outcomes that are going to happen. And that brings me to my third point of like focus on the benefits of returning to paid work.
yes.
It is not all terrible. It is actually really amazing for your kids, your family, your partner to witness you doing work that is impactful for yourself, that is meaningful for yourself, and that you feel like you're contributing and adding value to your community, the world. It is huge. And there's so many benefits to that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I think you nailed a really important piece of it, is that we turn away, right? Like we turn away or we avoid or we're really good at shoving away the stuff that, if we turn towards it, might really open up some stuff for us
Yeah.
in the sense that like we can let that stuff go. We can put that over here. We're not going to do that today, but if you and I were having a conversation about, okay, these are some of the things that we need to let go of, whether that's a negative self ideal or not giving anybody the best assumption possible. We're really good at being like, I couldn't let that go. Well, I like, this is part of my identity, or this is the way that I think, or and we have a really hard time letting go of that stuff. But let's just tuck that over here, because that might cause some struggle for me,
Yes.
or I talk a lot with my clients about this idea of like regular guilt and like toxic guilt, the toxic guilt that comes from the patriarchy. I'm responsible. I'm
Yeah.
doing this to my family. I did this, like all of that self, like toxic and
Yes.
shame. And
Yes.
it's so important to hard, hard, but it is so important to bring that into the room,
Yeah.
because personal example. A couple weeks ago, my husband and I were talking about this work-life blend. He goes to work. He has a schedule.
Uh-huh.
I do not have a schedule.
Yeah.
And so he said to me, you know what? Sometimes it really bothers me that the thing that you love the most takes so much time.
Yeah.
And and I said, okay, let's talk about this. If we need a different boundary around work or around when I work and when you work or how we manage all of that, like we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because and he was not saying it with like any kind of tone. He was just like, God, like I wish the thing that you love didn't take so much time,
Yeah.
because like it would be great if you could hang out in the evenings or you
Yeah.
could not work on a Saturday. And so like I've personally really had to do a lot of work around I'm choosing to do this,
Yeah.
and I'm choosing to then counteract it with some times of rest. Like I'm taking
Yes.
almost all of August off this year. And
Yeah.
so like there's these times when as a self-employed person, I understand that there's a different plateau of options and opportunity there,
Yeah.
versus when you get handed a schedule and that's just what you have
Mhm.
to do. Where I can choose to be at work and I can choose to rest.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And, I think that, I just came back from a big vacation myself. And I think that, like we both are self-employed and we both love the work that we get to do, right? And so I think that that is a really hard thing for people who love their work so much to kind of like to put an endpoint to it. Like, you know, but to put some boundaries around stopping doing that thing that we love and that thing that gives us so much energy and so
And
much
the thing that we know is going to create impact in the world, right?
yes.
Like
Yes.
we are both doing work in feminism and working against, or
Yeah.
with bringing people into
Yeah.
normalizing some different behaviors and patterns based on
Yeah.
what we've been shown in the history of the world
Yes. Yes. And why wouldn't we want to do that all the time?
all the
Like
time.
I am so with you. I am so with you. But
Yeah.
it's so funny. Like I took a break the past couple of weeks. And, and sometimes when I take a break, I'm like, well, but I'm going to read all these books on coaching and leadership. And that's great. But no, I was like, a friend of mine was like, no, you just need to, how about you read some fiction or how about you listen to some fiction? I'm like, what? I kept it like, but it is amazing. And I feel like like whenever I do let myself take that break or kind of enforce that upon myself to
Yes.
take a little bit of a break and step away, I always find I come back more refreshed and my mind is a little bit clearer. I'm able to see things in a different way when I get back to work that I'm like I come up with all these new ideas or all these other like connections between the work that I'm doing. It's just it's really 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 powerful to take that break too, even when we love our work so much.
Yes. Yes, there is so much power in the pause. Like
Yes.
and just really allowing your body and your mind
Yeah.
to rest. And
Mhm.
yeah, there is so much power in that. And so when we're talking about that we love, loving your work so
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
what are some ways that you coach people on, reframing or, kind of that mindset shift around focusing on the benefit of
Mhm.
paid
Yes.
and
Yes.
the unpaid work, if that's, potentially for listeners, they're like, my work is, I'm really passionate about staying at home and raising my kids or homeschooling, like, and so how can we remind ourselves of the benefits of our choices
Yes.
when
Yes.
we might be in the mud?
Yes, yes, and so I think whatever side you're on, thinking about what the benefits are for the way that you're choosing to move forward, right? So an example of when I started Parents Pivot, my daughter was in second grade. And for a Mother's Day project at school, she was asked to talk about why I should be on the cover of People magazine. And this is something that I think of so often because it really just brings back my why for why I'm doing this. And like, but so she was asked to talk about why I should be on the cover of People magazine. And she said, my mom is showing perseverance and bravery in starting this new business. She knows the answer to a tough question and she's going to help others with that. And that just lit me up. It still does. It still does. Like for her to see me doing work I love, like that's a benefit. And, and when we're shifting into returning to paid work, when we're shifting into paid work, sometimes we forget all the benefits that there are for being a working parent, all those things that we get to show our kids that we can do things that are hard. We can do things that are challenging. I often talk to my kids about like setbacks that happen in my business. This gives me an opportunity to showcase for them and to represent for them that things don't always go my way, and I navigate and I shift and I change and do something different. And I think that's that's one lesson that's really powerful about being a working parent that I get to share with them. So yeah.
Yes, that is so powerful. I mean, like the visual that came into my mind of like my mom is on the front of People magazine. Like, oh, that's so incredible. Hey, Anna, if you had just one piece of wisdom for people who are returning to paid work, what would it be?
I would say, be intentional about your journey and choose what is important to you. Don't focus on what everybody else is doing. Focus on what you want for yourself. Get really clear about what it is that you want to do and how you add value in that way. And you can do it. I mean, I've seen it happen so many times. People returning to paid work after, 2 years, 3 years, 21 years. We had somebody return to paid work after 21 years, and she just, I talked to her 6 months after she started. She was getting a promotion. She was so excited to be working. She was like, I forgot how amazing it is to do this. And so, so it's just like, I've seen it happen, and it's just so powerful to see people on the other side. So keep it up, and, feel free to reach out if anybody needs some support in returning to paid work.
Thank you so much. I'm going to include all of Anna's links and her bio in the show notes. And if anybody has any questions for either of us about returning to paid work or sustaining the relay race of being a working parent, and make no mistake, if you are currently a stay-at-home parent, you are working.
Yes.
You are working all damn day. And so any of these things that we talked about today, in knowing your value and the work-life blend, just replace work with parenting, the parenting life blend, and really reframing that mindset that there are benefits to this, and you can see them when you are also giving yourself permission to be interesting and rest.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.